They're in roughly half of all supermarket products.
Cured meats. It's my favourite thing on the planet.
They're the key ingredients in some of our most popular foods.
Ooh, yeah. All sorts of fun in here.
The E in E numbers stands for Europe, and they're a mark of the ingredient's safety.
E260, 202, 415.
But most of us seem pretty scared of them.
Yeah, I don't think E numbers are particularly good because they're not natural.
Things that make kids hyperactive.
I think they're bad, and I try to avoid them.
So what exactly are these chemicals that we're so suspicious of?
It's a bit of a minefield of information. There's so much stuff here.
And is it just possible that E numbers are actually doing us more good than harm?
I'm Stefan Gates. Now, as a food writer, I'm fascinated by what ends up on our plates and how it gets there. So I'm going on an edible adventure to discover what E numbers really are. And I'm going to do that by exploring, by making, and by eating as many E numbers as I can.
I'll be looking for answers in the strangest of places.
You don't want to look at this.
From the darkest recesses of my body to pregnant bugs and even flamingos. The truth behind E numbers is more extraordinary than I ever imagined. When you do your shopping, you could easily be putting 50 different E numbers into your trolley without realising it. Because they're not just in the obvious things, they're things like ready meals and sweets. They're also in wine, they're in bread, they're in ham. There's even one that can only be used in caviar. Some of them can be used to make your fruit shiny, and there's even E numbers in your toothpaste. Now, let's be honest, most of us hate the idea of E numbers, but we actually know very little about them. What are these things that we're putting into our bodies every single day? Well, I've decided to find out. So I'm going to pack away all of my prejudices against putting artificial additives into my food, and I'm going to enter the world of E's with an open mind and a welcoming stomach. There are more than 300 different E numbers, but the ones I'm going to start with are the E100s. The colours. These 42 food dyes pop up in all sorts of foods. E141 makes some mint ice creams nice and green. E150D can give the pickle in your ploughman's lunch its distinctive brown. And E129 gives this Turkish delight its delightful red colour. But why do we need to dye our food at all? Why can't we just eat it as it comes naturally? Well, it's all to do with what happens when manufacturers process food, because processing can dramatically change its appearance. And that's when this lot suddenly become very important indeed. It's pouring with rain, and I'm on my way to Reading. Now, it might not sound like the most glamorous day out to you, but for me, it's really exciting because Reading University has the most fantastic, very advanced food research department. I've come here to discover why E-number food colours are so important to food manufacturers. Reading University has its very own food processing plant, and Alistair Grandison has agreed to show me what canning, one of the simplest forms of food processing, can do to the colour of our food.
Essentially going to make two sorts of canned peas. We're going to make the old marrow fat peas here.
That's the mushy pea, isn't it?
It's the same ones you would use for mushy peas. We're not actually going to make them mushy today, or, well, not unless we overdo it. But we're also going to make some garden peas. We're going to fill up some cans. We're going to do some without any colour, and we're going to do some with added colour.
So basically, we're doing an experiment to show what happens when
Right.
you can food and you add colour to some and you leave some natural. So we can just see what the difference is between the two. The colour of some processed peas is achieved using two artificial food dyes, E102 tartrazine yellow and E133 brilliant blue, and they combine to form green.
I'm just going to load these into a retort, which is a large pressure cooker. Obviously, we're not going to fill it. To do it efficiently, you'd fill it right up. We're going to fill this with steam, and we're going to heat this to 121 degrees.
In this test on both garden and mushy peas, the heating destroys the enzymes and bacteria that could ruin them in the can, but it can also have another much more immediate effect.
I'm actually going to stop this now.
Now we can see what the difference is between food that's been left natural and uncoloured. First, the garden peas that have been processed with added colour.
Ooh! Yes,
pretty good, pretty good.
Don't look too bad.
That looks like a processed pea to me.
that-
So these are the sort of peas that you'd find on your supermarket shelf. So what's in here?
That's exactly the same thing, except without any added colouring. You can see they're very much duller in appearance. You know,
No, but it's not very appetising, is it? I mean, you look at that and it doesn't fill you with joy, really, does it?
No.
Next, the mushy peas with the colour.
They're pretty green, I'd say.
It's pretty green, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not too bad, is it?
Well, that sort of looks palatable. Looks relatively healthy.
Looks okay, doesn't it? I think we've got about the right colour level.
So the last can here.
Yes, it's just the same as that, except without any added colour.
Ew.
They're now very, very much not green.
Blimey, so that is quite amazing because they weren't cooking for days. It was half an hour for these?
Well, about 40 minutes for those, yes.
The only difference between the two batches is their colour, but what's strange is how dramatically this changes what I think about them. Nutritionally, I'm drawn to the food that looks better for me. And I look at the dull-looking peas and I just think, I'm not going to get enough from that.
I mean, a number of years ago, a company started selling peas without any added colour, and the basic problem that everything was fine, except nobody would buy them. So,
glad somebody's doing it. I'll buy the one with colouring in. Thanks very much. We haven't done anything to the flavour of the peas, but would the simple difference in their colour change the way that people felt about them? Time to test the peas on a bunch of unsuspecting students. I'd just like you to try some foods for me and tell me what you think about them. First, the canned peas as you'd normally buy them, glowing with added colour.
Just tastes like regular peas.
It's quite a rich tasting pea.
And then the peas with no added colour.
Doesn't taste like peas.
The pea with less colour tastes less strong.
The paler peas are less sweet.
Definitely go for the pea with a stronger colour, simply because it's more aesthetically pleasing.
Brighter greens, they're sort of more reminiscent of something fresh. These look like a little bit like chickpeas that are past their best.
Now, what was truly fascinating about that was that the added colour didn't just change whether or not they wanted to eat the peas, it genuinely changed the way that they thought the peas tasted. But how's this possible? How on earth can colour have any effect on our taste buds? Well, it seems that we make a whole series of crucial decisions about the flavour of any meal purely based on what it looks like, and colour is a major factor in this. Hey, how you doing? You all right? Good to see you. Food scientist Alice Pegg has agreed to unravel the mystery of how colours are used to dramatically transform our sense of taste.
So what we're going to be looking at today is colour perception. The easiest way of explaining this is to take this. What's this?
That is an orange.
And how do you know it's an orange?
Because it's orange coloured, it matches my expectations of what an orange would be.
Exactly. So subconsciously, whenever we look at a piece of food, we look back to a library of things we know. And if you've met an orange before, then you go, it looks orange, I think it's an orange, and you start getting that view of what it's going to taste like.
But if colour really dictates how we think something will taste, could we manipulate that sense of taste just through the addition of a bit of added colouring? Alice has promised to show me something extraordinary.
We're going to be looking at wine, and we're going to be taking a white wine, adding some red colouring into it, and making red wine, and then seeing if people can tell the difference. Do they think that that white wine is actually now red wine?
Blimey, that sounds like a bit of a jump for me. Okay, how do we go about it?
I think what we need to do is decant this into the jugs, and then if we decant some red wine, because the important thing is that we make the red colour look as close as possible.
So we've got to match it as well as we can.
And to do that also, we are using a grape skin extract as the colouring.
The plan is to take our fake red wine and see if a group of experienced wine tasters can spot that it's actually white.
Don't want to necessarily make it a very heavy one because we're looking it to be, a fairly light red.
Transforming the entire perception of such a well-known product with just a few drops of food colour seems like a pretty tough challenge.
That's believably a red wine for me.
And I think that's a nice purple redness to it. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's definitely red wine, isn't it?
I'm not sure. Smells like a white wine to me. I'd be surprised. But then we have the information at our fingertips. And so, well, if one person is fooled out of everyone we speak to, that's enough.
Our fake red wine is ready to go. It's time to give it to the members of a London wine club to see whether they'll be led by its taste or by its colour.
Is it a single varietal? Do you know?
Not saying.
I keep expecting that Alice and I will be rumbled. But so far, everyone seems to be describing different aspects of red wine.
Sorry, my writing is terrible.
It's all right.
It's been so difficult.
These guys are using all the right words, but they're using them for the wrong colour wine.
And would you like to come up and we can explain to you what it is that you've been drinking? The red wine you tasted was this. A Pinot Gris, an Alsatian Pinot Gris. It had some deep red food colouring added to it.
You know, you think it's a red wine, you automatically, oh, okay, it's red. You know, from working in the wine trade, how we've been taught how to taste is the first thing you do is look at the colour.
It wasn't warming, or it didn't taste like, I thought it didn't have any alcohol in it or something.
I think that you all had a little hunch about it, but it seems that the colour alone shifted your perception enough. And did you all, presumably you all believed it was a red wine?
Yeah.
Colour is vital to food, and it is what guides our perception of flavour and the taste of food.
So E-number colours aren't just cosmetic. They're a vital tool for food manufacturers because they affect not only the appearance, but the way that we taste their products. But what are the chemicals they're using to achieve these bright colours?
This is E120, cochineal, and it's used in foods to give them a pink colour. It's in things like cakes, in yoghurts, it's even in some sausages. But the source of this E-number is really quite extraordinary. It's time to go on a little trip.
The source of cochineal can only be found in hot climates. Mexico, Chile, Peru, or, on my budget, Lanzarote. I've come to meet a woman who's promised to show me the source of E120.
When you find out where it's come from, you might actually feel a bit disgusted, but for me, I'm fascinated by it. Hola! Hola! Hola, Jana. How are you? Hola. Hola, Maria. Now, I hear that you are the cochineal expert of Lanzarote, the queen of cochineal, is that right?
Ah, sí, mucho.
Can you explain to me how cochineal is made?
Oh, sí, vamos, sígueme.
Gracias.
Chana Pereira takes me to see her cacti, but they don't look very pink to me.
So, what are these?
Bueno, esto es la tunera opuntia, que produce la cochinilla, que los agricultores la plantan. Si quieres te lo demuestro ahora.
These cacti are specifically for cochineal production?
Sí.
Yes.
It turns out it's not the plants that I'm meant to be looking at, it's the things living on them. Bugs.
Esto es la cochinilla hembra.
These are the female cochineal right here. So this mouldy old leaf is carrying a kind of a white fluff with some very sleepy bugs underneath it, and these bugs are the source of purple food colouring. It looks extraordinary, doesn't it? It just looks like a mouldy leaf.
Cochineal bugs are tiny, just 5 millimetres long, but it's what's inside them that matters.
Como no, esta es la sangre de la cochinilla.
So it's the blood.
Cochineal bugs are one of the very few insects that produce red carminic acid in their bodies. It's there to stop other insects from eating them, but this acid is also the source of E120, as found in the pink icing of many a fairy cake. Channa wants to show me how to harvest the insects. Here, it's done the traditional way, complete with authentic Lanzarote sun hats.
For ladies.
Qué guapo.
It's a bonnet, isn't it?
To get cochineal bugs onto the cactus, pregnant females are put into a sack, which is then placed onto the plants.
So basically, these bags are kind of cochineal maternity wards. They're full of pregnant female cochineal bugs. They lay their eggs, and what, the babies crawl out and reinfect the cactus?
Sí, infecta todo el cactus, se adhieren al cactus y entonces ahí van creciendo durante 3 meses. Cuando ya están maduras, el agricultor las recoge.
It's kind of really sweet on one level and really disgusting on another.
After 3 months, when the cacti are covered with insects, the mature bugs are harvested by hand.
Con esta cuchara recoge las cochinillas, así. Bueno, se recoge para secarla.
Do you know what? It's very hot out here, but I'm actually feeling quite cool under my fetching hat.
Once the bugs are collected, they're laid out on large wooden trays to dry. Channa has a little traditional song to help us through our labours.
Saquitos de chorizo que mi abuelo me decía, hay que llenarlos bien y matar bien la cochinilla para que el carmín salga muy frondoso.
But it's not the song that kills them. The heat of the sun does that job. We then shake the dead bugs to remove any dirt.
Oh, contratado.
But this is as far as the farming part of the process goes. To get the food additive E120, we need to do a little chemistry. The next stage is to get the dead bugs to a local lab.
Juan, can you explain to me how we get from a pile of dried bugs to a pigment?
Y la molemos de esta manera. Moler bien la cochinilla.
Should I do that for you?
Okay.
It's really hard, isn't it?
Sí, va saliendo el color púrpura.
How's that? Pretty good?
Okay, sí.
Okay.
We boil up roughly 250 crushed bugs and then filter the solution.
Oh, look at that red. So look, that's like coffee grounds.
What we have now is a richly coloured cochineal solution. Carminic acid is the pure pigment, but to make the colour stable, we now add aluminium and calcium salts.
Okay, so you can start to see the powder, the solids forming on the outside of the jug. There's grains beginning to form a lot stronger and thicker now, and the bigger lumps than they were before. So that's it.
Poco a poco.
Poco a poco.
We then filter it one last time.
Look at that colour. So here we are. This is the carmine. There it is. Wow. Oh, look at that. If you see the word cochineal or carmine or E120 on the ingredients list of any food, this is what it is you're eating. And this is what it's come from.
Over 20 billion cochineal bugs are harvested each year to make the colour in loads of products including sausages and yoghurts. Most E-number colours like cochineal are added to food during the cooking process, but you can in fact colour your grub while it's still alive. Much of our supermarket salmon gets its pink colour from being fed canthaxanthin or astaxanthin, which mirror the diet of wild fish. These substances are also E-numbers, and I've come to mainland Spain to track down one particularly strange source of canthaxanthin.
I'm in southwestern Spain. I'm driving out of Seville in search of flamingos. And there is a fascinating connection between the colour of flamingos' feathers and some of the food that we eat.
Flamingos are actually born grey, but as they mature, they turn their famous pink colour. I'm on my way to find out why.
I've come to one of Spain's national parks, and usually they do have flamingos here. The trouble is, this area of Spain has just had a whole year's worth of rain in the last 2 months. So I'm meeting a bird specialist who should hopefully lead me to them.
Joining me on my rainy flamingo quest is ornithologist Juan Aguilar Amat.
It's not a very good day to watch for flamingos, but we may try. We may try.
Okay, good. Let's hope for the best.
Sure.
Okay.
Our hunt for flamingos doesn't get off to a very promising start.
I can't see any.
I can't see.
Go down here or down there? Oh, look there! There! Masses! Oh, there they go! So they're all around in little groups. That's really exciting, because I was worried that we weren't going to see any.
But it isn't actually the birds I'm most interested in. It's their food, without which their feathers wouldn't be pink at all.
Okay.
Okay, you may try to look for the flamingos' food. Try to look about here for the...
Around here. So just scoot around the bottom?
Yes. Not close to the bottom, because the mud may enter the net.
So I feel at one with the flamingo now. Aha, okay.
I think
we've got some stuff.
Okay.
Oh, there's quite a few there.
Yes.
Oh, blimey, look at that. It's a soup of brine shrimp, so salty water shrimps. They're tiny little fellas. And these have got the substance in that gives the flamingos their pink colour.
Yeah, sure.
They're tiny, aren't they?
Yes.
These brine shrimp don't look particularly colourful, but they're rich in the pigment canthaxanthin. Exactly the same chemical is produced in labs and put in the feed of some of our farmed salmon. Canthaxanthin's even fed to flamingos in zoos to ensure that their feathers turn the right shade of pink.
I think the only way to really empathise with a flamingo is to experience the things that they experience. So, here's a little bundle of 3. They're wriggling about. Oh, do you know what? Ever so slightly prawn-like. I mean, yeah, shrimp-like. It makes sense. I never in a million years imagined that researching E-numbers would uncover such extraordinary stories. The fact that the food that I eat has something in common with flamingos, I find amazing.
So there are some dyes like cochineal and canthaxanthin which can occur perfectly naturally. But there's another group of E-number dyes that can only be made synthetically, and they're these. And you can find them in some fizzy drinks and sweets. But with all these colours in nature, why do we need these man-made ones at all? I'm meeting up with chemist Andrea Sella at University College London to find out just why some food dyes have to be created in labs rather than collected from nature.
So this is a natural red food dye.
This is the extract that you get from red cabbage. You might want to have a quick sniff.
Oh, well, that honks.
And it's really something that, well, something that anyone can make at home, and perhaps the smell's a bit of an acquired taste. What I'm going to show you is really how this behaves when you put them into sort of different situations. And we're going to take, first of all, a little bit of lemon juice. And lemon juice is somewhat acidic, and we're going to put it into this beaker here. And then we're going to take a little bit of bicarb, and bicarb is kind of the other extreme.
The stuff that you get in baking soda, basically.
Absolutely. This is what you would use when you're baking. What we'll see is the difference, the way in which the cabbage dye behaves under these two sets of conditions. What it does is it really shows the limitations of certain natural dyes. So here goes our red dye into the slightly acidic solution.
Oh, it's like a ballet of colour, isn't it?
And now I'm going to put it into the second one, which has the bicarbonate. You can see that it's actually a much more purplish color. And so one is really quite red, the other one has gone purple.
So for a cook, using this kind of colour at home, it's sort of unpredictable because we don't know what it's going to perform like in different conditions.
Absolutely.
So how are synthetic E-number dyes different? Andrea shows me by dropping one of them into those same two solutions.
Let's just put in the first one into the lemon juice. And there we are, and we can see that lovely bright red color.
Mm-hmm.
And now we'll put the same thing into the bicarbonate. And you can see there's no difference.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
When you cook, you don't want the color to break down. One of the things about synthetic dyes is that they are very robust, they're very tough, and therefore they can cope with all of those different circumstances.
So lab-made dyes are much better when it comes to cooking and food manufacturing because they give you strong, consistent colours every time. But where do they come from? And when did we invent them? Well, it's a journey that takes us right to the birth of food science. The hunt for good food dyes has been going on for years, and before the E-number system came along, some pretty gruesome things could crop up in your food. Historian Ruth Goodman has agreed to demonstrate some of the early shocking attempts at how chemistry was used to change the colour of our food well before the E-number system came along.
Hi Ruth.
Hiya.
How you doing? You well?
Good, good, thanks. And you?
Very good.
And we're starting with good old-fashioned milk, which looks so much better after a teaspoon of toxic lead.
This is a chromate of lead to make this amazing yellow. And that's a pretty good colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
But as poisonous as heck.
Why on earth would you want to colour milk?
Well, to make it look like it's got more cream in it.
Okay, so make it a bit more yellowy.
Yeah, so if you've got really rubbish milk, which is super thin and then has been watered down to make it go even further, it sort of looks almost sort of grey-blue. So one way to make people think they were buying the good stuff would be to make it look more creamy.
Should we try?
So just try a little bit of this. Okay. So this is pretty nasty stuff. So before we handle it, I think we ought to put some gloves on just in case.
It's dangerous enough to need to put gloves on. That's quite extraordinary. And yet it was put into milk.
Yeah.
So this idea that there are these wonderful, romantic, organic producers out in the countryside sending their stuff to town.
But at the same time, there were also unscrupulous middlemen who were busily ripping everybody off.
It wasn't just milk that was adulterated. A study in 1877 found that 10% of all butter and 50% of all gin had copper added to improve its colour.
Yeah. There we are.
Okay, so that does definitely look a lot creamier, doesn't it?
It does.
And yellow wasn't the only appetising colour you could make with a nice bit of lead. So Ruth, what have you got here?
This one's really nasty. This is red lead, and it's in a powder. It's an incredible colour, very, very powerful. And colours, you only need a little bit of it, and you get a really strong effect. But it is one of the most toxic of things, including by breathing in the powder, touching it with your skin. But it's very, very nasty. So we do have to put masks on so we don't breathe in the powder.
Okay.
I've already got it on. There we are. I mean, look at the colour. It's an incredible colour, isn't it? Okay, so we just mix a bit up. Water, go for it, and mix the two.
Just a spoonful?
Just a spoonful, yeah, not very much. That's it. And blend it in.
It becomes even more vivid, doesn't it?
Extraordinary.
Absolutely extraordinary. So what would they do with it?
You just coat sweets in it and dry them out.
Yeah. Just effectively painting them. The practice of colouring food with lead was rife in England in the early 1800s, even though scientists had known about its poisonous qualities for over 200 years. And you can see that's the sort of colour that kids would love,
isn't it just? And yeah, you have your terrifyingly toxic sweets. And I suppose if you were going to die from TB or cholera by the age of 40 anyway, it got you before the red lead did.
This stuff is aimed at kids, and yet do not touch, toxic, harmful by inhalation, not to be used, sucked or chewed by children or animals, keep away from food, drink and animal foodstuffs. And people tried it, and I guess that's the big difference. These days, these things have to be tested.
Yes.
You know, until people are sure that they're safe to use.
But that's it. Without regulation, some manufacturers were willing to do anything to sell stuff.
So colourful foods sometimes came at a hefty price in the era before E-numbers. The often unscrupulous world of food colouring changed in the mid-19th century with a revolution in the science of colourings. It started when the textile industry began embracing a new discovery, a way of making dyes synthetically, and it soon spread to the food industry. And these dyes paved the way for many of the E-number colours that we use today. Like this, E110 Sunset Yellow, that's used in certain energy drinks. Or E124 Ponzo 4R, that's found in some canned raspberries and jelly. But the source of these dyes was something quite unexpected. It was this: coal. But like me, you're probably wondering how on earth you get a rainbow of glorious food colours from a dirty chunk of prehistoric wood.
If we just break it down, it was...
What hard stuff as well.
You know what?
Get a smaller bit.
I'm going to get a smaller, flatter bit. Ridiculous. All right, so now if you could quickly just turn the gas on. Go for it.
Back at school in the science lab.
So what was found was that if you actually heated up coal fairly gently, not enough to actually set fire to it, just warm it up, then what you would get was a whole witch's brew of liquids that would distill out of this.
Liquids from coal? I mean, you
Absolutely.
don't quite expect that, do you?
And you can start to see that there's a vapor that's actually condensing up the tube. And those are, in fact, a whole series of quite volatile compounds.
This condensation isn't just water. It's a whole mixture of different chemical compounds. These compounds can be isolated, and when they're refined and reacted together, they can form a whole range of colours.
That is absolutely mad.
What you're getting is this dye forming right in front of your eyes.
That's real alchemy for me.
By changing the little components that we have, we can completely tune the color. So we can make these yellow, we can make these green, we can make, take your pick, whatever you want.
Chemist as artist. I like that. Is this one of these very stable dyes that you're talking about, that's more stable than natural colourings?
Well, this is certainly one of the sort of rock-like synthetic dyes called the azo dyes.
On one level, it's brilliant and fascinating that you can get all of this rainbow of colours from something as fundamental and prehistoric as coal. On another level, there just seems something odd. There's such a disconnect between coal and food, and I think that's worrying. It's unsettling. We don't eat coal. To extract something from it and put it in food, it just seems oddly unnatural and oddly wrong.
Nowadays, these dyes mainly come from an equally bizarre source: petroleum. And a question mark has been raised over some synthetic E-numbers. A recent study found that there could be a link between a small group of 6 synthetic colours and hyperactivity in some children. Amongst these was the now infamous E102 tartrazine yellow. The results of the study weren't enough for regulators to ban them, but food manufacturers in Britain are removing them from their food in response to people's concerns.
But colour is just one of the E-number tools that manufacturers can use to get you to change the way that you think about food. Obviously, a huge amount of the pleasure of eating comes from the taste of food on our tongues. And the next group of E's are the big guns in the E-number armoury. They're the 18 flavour enhancers like these, which directly target our taste buds by improving and intensifying the flavour that's already in our food. These flavour enhancers include this: E621, monosodium glutamate, or MSG. And it's used quite a bit in Asian food, and it's caused quite a lot of controversy because people complain of headaches or even crippling stomach pains after eating it. The problem's even got its own name. It's called Chinese restaurant syndrome. Now, I want to find out how MSG works and whether or not it really deserves its notoriety. Monosodium glutamate was the brainchild of Japanese chemist Kikunae Ikeda. He was trying to find out what it was that gave his wife's soup its particularly enjoyable taste. The secret was in the seaweed that most Japanese stock is based on. Ikeda worked out that its distinctive taste comes from the glutamate in the seaweed. By 1907, he'd found a way to extract the glutamate and combine it with sodium to form a white powder that could be added to food just like salt. Now, for the first time, Japanese chefs could get the glutamate taste with a simple pinch of powder. Millions of tons of MSG are now produced every year, not from seaweed, but through the fermentation of molasses and sugar beet, making it one of the most widely eaten food additives in the world. MSG is listed on the labels of thousands of products that I've eaten in the past, but I've never, ever in my life cooked with it. But billions of people across the world do cook with it every day, so I thought better find out how you use it in food. Now, we went round and knocked on the doors of loads of Chinese restaurants and said, can we talk to you about MSG? And everyone went, no. There seems to be a real sort of shame attached to this product, which is really interesting because it is used so much. The only person I could find to talk to me about it was a friend of mine called Jun Tanaka, and I've convinced him to tell us how to cook with MSG.
I need a whole one.
Jun currently runs a French restaurant, and he's never used MSG at work. But he grew up in Japan, where his mother would often use it in her cooking. So what does he have to say about this notorious ingredient?
That's a dodgy looking packet of something.
It really is, isn't it?
When I was growing up, my mother used to have a shaker of that beside the salt and pepper pot, and she would put it in pretty much everything.
You kind of put a little bit of this on top of your food?
Oh, no, you do it while you're cooking. You put that on practically anything, and I think, apart from puddings, it makes it taste good.
But how can this white powder really make food taste better? Jun rustles up a delicious butternut squash soup. So, you ready for this?
Yeah, I am.
So, should we have a little taste of it first? That is really nice. So, this is going to be almost overwhelmingly nice. How could an E number, E621 monosodium glutamate, possibly improve the work of a master chef? Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, it's very fulfilling.
You know what it does in this particular recipe? It makes it more of a complete feel in your mouth. A complete. Does that make sense? It makes it feel more complete.
There is a sort of roundness to it. It's really difficult to describe these things, isn't it? But I think you're right. They are two very different soups now. That one has got all the flavour, but there's a taste. There's something at the heart of this one which this other one doesn't have. Do you think the one with MSG in tastes better than the one without?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It does feel more of a rounded flavour.
Okay.
It just feels more complete in flavour.
So MSG clearly can be a useful ingredient in the kitchen. But why do some people say that it causes them digestive problems and headaches? When you dissolve MSG on the tongue, the sodium splits from the glutamate almost immediately, and it's absorbed by your body in exactly the same way as the sodium from salt, leaving behind what many people believe is the problem, the glutamate. But this glutamate is exactly the same as that found in a whole range of natural ingredients. Food scientist Audrey Dean explains.
People don't realise that there's actually glutamate in a lot of the foods that we eat every day. And the body doesn't distinguish between monosodium glutamate and glutamate. We use it in exactly the same way, we taste it in exactly the same way, and so it is essentially the same. One of the highest concentrations of glutamate is actually in parmesan.
We eat Parmesan cheese, and the glutamate in that is exactly the same. Our body processes it in exactly the same way as MSG, the white powder that is tipped into processed food.
That's correct.
These all look like very natural, pure foods, don't they?
Well, they are. Broccoli, naturally occurring glutamate. Mushrooms, naturally occurring glutamate. Maybe that's why mushrooms taste so good in vegetarian food.
But if you get glutamates in everything from mushrooms to Parmesan cheese, does E621 monosodium glutamate really deserve its terrible reputation? Audrey and I decide to see if an extreme physical reaction to MSG, known as Chinese restaurant syndrome, is actually due to the MSG that you get in a lot of Chinese food, or whether the natural glutamate in foods can also be to blame. These 4 people say that MSG causes them all kinds of trouble, and they think they're about to face their worst nightmare. We've brought you here to a restaurant to eat a Chinese meal. This is probably the sort of food that you've been avoiding for a little while, so I apologise for that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's why we're here.
Okay. Enjoy. Bon appetit.
Ladies first.
What they don't know is that this meal has been specially prepared so that it has absolutely no E621 MSG in it at all. But it does have ingredients that naturally contain glutamates.
Do you not find it grim?
Yeah. I'm actually panicking.
Man, why is it so dreadful?
They're having trouble eating the whole lot.
Yeah. Am I just being really paranoid, or does it taste really, like, chemically?
Even though there isn't any MSG, it isn't long before those Chinese restaurant syndrome symptoms start to appear. We're struggling, aren't we, team?
I don't know if it's smell or the fact that I can still taste in my mouth, but it's like starting to give me a headache.
Are these the normal symptoms that you'd feel after having MSG?
There has to be, because I haven't felt this uncomfortable for a very, very long time.
But these symptoms can't be caused by MSG. There isn't any in the meal, so it's almost certainly the natural glutamates. And to check that it's not just a psychological reaction to Chinese food, I'm sending 5 people who also say that they have problems with MSG to an Italian restaurant. Take your coats off, you can relax a little bit now. So, do you like Italian food?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone likes Italian food. We're going to bring you a meal, and we're going to ask you what you think about it. It's all part of our controlled experiment to find out what your reactions are to the food that you're given. Okay? All right. Oh, here we go. Again, the meal has no MSG, just natural glutamates.
What's that? Oh, it's not Parmesan.
It's cheese.
Oh, it's Parmesan. I wouldn't normally order something like this, but it's quite nice.
We gave our Italian diners video diary cameras, and just a few hours later, 4 out of 5 of them showed symptoms that they associate with eating MSG.
I've got very bad wind pains.
Felt uneasiness in my arms and hands, which I normally do when I eat Chinese food.
Been doubled up with wind.
I just feel really sick.
So 7 out of 9 of our volunteers felt ill, even though none of them had eaten any MSG whatsoever. Now, I'll be the first to admit that this particular study wasn't exactly definitive, but it does seem as though MSG's notorious reputation could well be unfounded. If you do have a problem with glutamates, then you're not just going to have that problem with food made using MSG. You're going to have exactly the same problem with a whole range of foods, from broccoli, tomatoes, and from Parmesan cheese to chicken. And for the vast majority of people who don't have a glutamate intolerance, there should be little to fear from MSG. As well as the 18 E-number flavour enhancers, there's a whole other group of additives that do more than just enhance our food. These are the flavourings themselves. There are literally thousands of chemically produced flavours that are added to our food. There are so many of them that they have to have their own regulatory system separate from E-numbers. But if you think they're all designed to work on your tongue, you'd be, well, completely wrong. We've already found out how the colour of our food affects how it tastes, but how it smells is even more important. I'm going to meet ear, nose and throat specialist Professor Narula to find out exactly why our nostrils, as well as our taste buds, are the key to a delicious meal.
Most of what people think of as taste is really smell. And if you ever meet anyone who's unfortunate enough to have lost their sense of smell, they will always say that their taste is drastically reduced. The sense of smell itself is located right at the top of the nose, just behind the bone of the forehead. That's called the olfactory bulb.
And that's where we experience smell. To show me how this all works, Professor Narula insists on sticking a camera right up my nose.
We're going into the nostril here. We're just seeing the breathing passage at the moment. Just going to slide it to the back. It might be a wee bit ticklish. Well done. Good treatment. And then we're just here now.
This unpleasant contraption is showing us that there's a secret back channel that routes smells from the back of our mouths up towards that olfactory bulb, which means we're actually smelling our food whilst we're eating it.
As the aromas reach into the roof of the nose, right up there at the very top, there's a small area that receives the actual smell and fires off the electrical impulses that go a really short distance straight up into the bit of the brain that lies behind your forehead. So you can now understand how flavour is largely smell.
And that's where the food manufacturers are targeting when they put flavours into food to make it smell in a different way.
Absolutely.
They're aiming all of their work right up there.
You'll find added flavourings in pretty much all the processed food that you eat. These chemicals are designed to give the ingredients an extra boost. Some are completely natural and others are artificial. I want to know more about the secretive world of the flavourings industry. I've been granted rare access to what is, in the world of food additives, the equivalent of Willy Wonka's food factory. I'm about to enter a flavouring lab.
Thank you very, very much for letting me come and visit you. So excited.
Yeah, good.
Blimey, it's a wall of flavour the moment you
yes.
open the door here.
Absolutely, it's like that all the time here.
Steve Pearce is an expert flavourist, and on his shelves there are thousands upon thousands of different flavours that can make our food and drink taste like, well, whatever he wants them to taste like. Many of these extracts are from exotic plants that Steve and his team scour the planet to track down.
Dandelion, ginger. This is brilliant. It's like Explorer's library.
Yeah,
it's flavours I've brought back from around the world.
Yeah. Discovering a new flavour that can be added to our food could potentially be worth millions.
So cola flavour. I mean, this is the key to world domination, isn't it? Knowing things like this.
Yep. And everyone's got their own version.
Yeah.
More or less lime, more or less vanilla, more citrusy, more sweet, cola.
So if you developed the new, a new flavour, like a new cola or something like that, does that mean that you could just hang up your boots and take over the world and watch the money flood in?
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
While Steve waits for his big money-making discovery, he's already got a nice sideline going, working for museums, creating the aroma of Cleopatra's hair and the whiff of the Mir space station.
We've now identified something like 10,000 different materials responsible for the flavour in food. So we've got this fantastic array of substances we can work with to recombine, to use in different ways to create those flavour images, if you like. We've got enough combinations of senses in the nose, if you like, for more than every molecule in the atmosphere. So the combinations that we can sense and create are just infinite.
But all flavouring chemicals have one thing in common. They contain small volatile molecules that travel from the mouth and shoot up towards the olfactory bulb. But one single flavour can be made up of literally hundreds of different chemicals, all releasing individual molecules.
It's all very, very happily theoretical at the moment. Can you take me through building a flavour?
Sure, let's make a simple flavour and you'll see how the process comes together.
To give me an idea of just how complex the science of flavourings is, Steve's going to show me how to make a relatively simple flavour, strawberry.
We're going to add a little bit of the gamma-decalactone.
So, gamma-decalactone, which sounds like something off Star Trek. How much?
0.5 of a gram.
We're talking minute quantities of these things at a time, aren't we?
A flavour can often be made up of unusual combinations of ingredients. This gamma-decalactone smells of peaches.
Next we're going to add some 2-methyl-butyric acid.
Oh, cheesy. What's a strong cheese flavour doing in strawberry?
Well, this is going to add some of those sharp characters, acidic characters that you might get in a strawberry. This is called cis-3-hexenol from the residues of peppermint distillation. What does it remind you of?
Grass.
This is now the green character, the green fresh character we're adding to our natural strawberry.
By the time I've finished my strawberry flavour, we've added 8 different components. And each of these components itself consists of up to 200 different chemical substances. It's there. I think what the yoghurt's missing is a lot of sugar.
And I'll tell you what, the other thing that would just emphasise it now is a bit of red colour. Then you'd add a label on it that said strawberry.
And suddenly
but
you would believe
bad. That's a strawberry flavour.
Hey,
wouldn't you say?
Give me 5.
Well done, mate. Excellent work, excellent work.
My experience with Steve has made me realise that flavours are like chemical works of art. But just how powerful are they? If we could fool some wine drinkers with a little red dye, what happens if we bring Steve's huge collection of flavours into play?
After I learned all about the way that the flavouring trade works, I couldn't stop thinking, couldn't we use all these tricks, all these games that flavourists play, and use that to try and get kids to eat foods that traditionally they usually hate? So I've come up with a little project, and I want to see if we can transform vegetables that are traditionally the bane of every child's life and make them into something that they love to eat.
Now, I know that we're all wary of putting additives into kids' food, but if we can get kids to eat more vegetables, the nutritional benefits could be huge. Helping us on this seemingly impossible challenge are twins and children's party caterers, Jess and Laura.
In an hour and a half's time, children will be arriving here to test these products and try and get them to eat Brussels sprouts and cabbage and enjoy them.
Oh,
Okay.
let's get wiggle on.
Why do you think kids don't like them?
I think it's got that kind of cabbagey, sprouty flavour.
It is a sort of underpantsy sort of
Yeah.
something. There's something wrong there, isn't there?
Farty flavour.
No, that's the bit I like.
We're going to make 2 dishes. The first one will have some extra child-friendly ingredients to make the vegetables more appetising.
Yeah, we've got bananas. That's going to be good. Kids like bananas.
But the second dish will be a real challenge, as it'll be nothing but vegetables, some food colours and Steve's chemical flavours.
Okay, there you go. Welcome to my world. There you go.
Dish number 1 is a Brussels sprout Knickerbocker glory. We're making our job even harder by using raw Brussels sprouts, finely chopped with a small amount of yoghurt.
Have a little taste of the cabbage with strawberry yoghurt.
Well, sprout tastes better than it looks, but kids wouldn't ever get away with that. I mean, it definitely needs some flavouring out of Steve's magic box.
Yeah. Try this mango flavour. This is super powerful. A natural mango flavour. So pop some in there. So you'll do that. Okay, how many drops? Not many.
Whoa,
drops.
there's only a tiny amount of stuff in there.
1, 2, 3. I'm quite excited.
It's definitely mango though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that bitterness that chews out at the end, that's the thing, isn't it?
But to mask those bitter Brussels sprouts, Steve's got a very special ingredient, extracted from the Ketemphe fruit of West Africa.
What's that?
Thaumatin. I actually did canoe up the Kamoe River in a dugout tree to hunt the fruit.
Did you?
To finish the dish off, layers of sprouts alternate with layers of mango and banana.
Yeah, that's brilliant. They'll definitely eat that.
They'll probably say, don't like bananas. Don't like bananas. Never like bananas.
But the second dish will be a real test of our chemical ingenuity. Can we get kids to eat whole Brussels sprouts just by using flavourings and colours?
Look at currant sprouts.
Okay, have some more. That smells good.
They're just not going to get through it.
2 hours later, and 6 vegetable-hating kids are going to put our flavour concoctions to the test.
She doesn't always eat the vegetables, so in that way it's a struggle.
Feeling good? Okay. Right.
He doesn't like the taste of vegetables. Even when he tries them, then he has an idea that he doesn't like them.
Brussels sprouts and aubergines are a no-no, and, you know, certain green vegetables like leafy vegetables.
You ready? You excited?
Yes.
Okay, let the tasting commence. Woo! Steve, dish number 1, please. We start off gently with our raw Brussels sprout knickerbocker glory. We've turned everything around. We're starting with dessert. That's crazy, isn't it? Will our added chemical flavours disguise the natural flavour of the sprouts?
Hey, finish yours, Cherish. She's tucking right in.
It's not bad.
Are these all tastes that you enjoy?
Yes, it is. It's very good. The taste is good.
So far, so good. But what will happen with our second dish? These whole Brussels sprouts are disguised only with blackcurrant flavour and colour.
They're
eyeballs.
Sweeties.
They're eyeballs.
It's not eyeballs, Brussels sprout.
It's eyeballs.
Exactly. Brussels sprout.
Some of the kids rumble us straight away.
I don't like it. Brussels sprouts are one of the vegetables that go into the categories that...
I prefer foods that taste really nice, like chips, pizza, and Brussels sprouts. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit into any of those categories.
But amazingly, some of them actually like our creations. They're eating whole Brussels sprouts.
I quite like it. I've never ate a Brussels sprout before.
You've never eaten a Brussels sprout before? And do you like it?
Yes, I do.
Well, that may well have been one of the toughest taste tests of all time, trying to mask the coarse texture and the strong, natural flavouring of those vegetables using man-made additives, but then testing them out on kids who hate vegetables. Now, in the end, not all the kids were fooled, but some of them have just eaten their first green veg in years, and that is a big achievement. And it just goes to show that the science of flavouring and colouring has a huge power and potential. Most of us are unaware of the fundamental roles that E-number colours and flavour enhancers play in our enjoyment of food. Some come from natural sources, others are created in labs. But without these additives, many of our favourite foods would never appeal to our senses in the same way. Ultimately, it's up to you whether or not you eat food additives, although if you really want to avoid them, you'll probably have to radically change your eating habits. The thing is, if you expect the taste, the flavour and the colour of your food to be perfect every time you buy it, then obviously nature's got its limitations. It can only do so much. And realistically, that just leaves one option: the extraordinary chemistry of E-numbers. Next week, the preservative E's. I learn what can happen to meat without them.
That is particularly unpleasant, isn't it?
I try making some the old-fashioned way. And I also have a go at extracting E-numbers from my own body.
Delicious. Human cake.